What is the best case of you just fucked with the wrong person you've witnessed? 10-year-old me seeing my dad's face when I didn't want to do the dishes and told my mom that she should do them because she did nothing around the house. I don't know how I survived tbh. Edit. The stupidity of what I said is compounded by the fact that those were the dishes of a meal that my mom had cooked by herself from scratch, like she did almost every night. I'm not sure if it's the best, but it's certainly the most violent. Some prick in his 20s was drunk, telling everyone in the pub how he could kick everyone's ass, and generally mouthing off about what a hard man he was. He started hassling this workman in his 50s, who was clearly trying to have a quiet drink by himself, who did not react at all. Just continued drinking and ignoring the moron. Moron didn't take this well and poured his drink over the workman's head, who proceeded to take his painter's trowel out of his work bag, gash the hard man right across his face, finish his drink and calmly walk out while the other guy sprayed blood everywhere and screamed. Sunderland in the 90s was an interesting city to drink in. In middle school, during lunch period, a kid in my grade was getting picked on by this larger kid and his friends. He said, "Stop it. Leave me alone," a few times. No one watching did anything because we were just dumb kids who didn't want to get picked on either. Large kid was poking him and calling him names while his buddies laughed. Suddenly he slapped him in the head. The other kid went bananas. Face red, tears streaming down his face. He jumped on large kid and beat his ass. Crying "Just leave me alone," teachers broke it up and began scolding him. But everyone who had been watching vouched for him. Said he was only defending himself. I think they both got suspended anyway. No one messed with that kid anymore though. A friend of mine's stepdad is not a good guy. He is full of rage and will lash out without a second thought. This made him the wrong target for two guys who tried to mug him near an ATM. They came up to him and demanded he withdraw money. He grabbed one of them and smashed the guy's head and face into a brick wall. The other guy ran away, but he chased him down and beat the it out of him. I didn't witness it, but I got first-hand accounts and saw the police report. Bob was a delivery driver at Domino's and was a little off his rocker. Kind of older, upper 60s. Maybe all the way to 70, and the kind of guy who would cuss out a 10-year-old to make a point but also gave away our cancelled orders at the end of the night to homeless people. And X200B. Anyways, Bob's delivering a pizza and gets smugged. The robber walked up and hit Bob in the head with a brick. Dropped the brick. Took his cash and took the pizza. Bob got up, took the brick and proceeded to mug him back and then called the police. The gangbanger in his 20s was too terrified of the pizza man in his 70s to run away and waited to be arrested. My boss invited a handful of us over to her house for some beers and burgers one Friday night. Her 5-year-old, I think, daughter sat down next to some of us and wanted to play Uno. A co-worker of mine sitting next to her made some comments about how cute it was that she wanted to play games and was generally extra patronizing. The 5-year-old dealt the cards and proceeded to destroy us. I assume she had some help stacking the deck, but her entire hand was full of the draw 4s. By the time she said the girl who had said she was cute was ready to dropkick her, but couldn't because she was holding 20 plus cards. Oh my lord, I've waited for this question for a long time. There's a kid at my school who's just a ducking bully. He thinks he's hard and all that because he walks around school with knuckle dusters. Anyway, he goes up to this autistic kid on the field at lunch and he starts kicking his backpack and taking his books out of his bag. Now this kid is literally about 160 pounds of fat and muscle, and he just turned round and ducking chased the kid to the trees at the far end of the field, and I ran after them, and the autistic kid is making primal ducking growls and beating the duck out of this cunt. It took me and 3 other people to get him off of him. Was at the bar on the back patio part with my girlfriends. There was this deaf woman sitting with her other deaf friend. They looked mid-20s about, and they were just sitting there quietly signing to each other. This drunk Kevin Federline type dude comes up and kept hitting on the woman. She clearly indicated non-verbally that she wasn't interested, but he still just hung around hovering over her. And by hover, he was literally hovering pressed up against her chair, touching her arms and back while she did her best to ignore him and talk with her friend while occasionally indicating to him to leave her alone. Then, all of a sudden she laid him out so fast. All I saw was him laying on his back looking dazed while she stood over him and Helen Keller yelling at him. 2 at my high school as a kid. One douchebag guy named Rich was picking on a kid all day. He followed the kid out to the buses, jawing at him the whole time while the kid just walked with his head down and his hands in his pockets. Rich said something that stopped the kid in his tracks, and he pulled his hand out of his pocket with a pencil gripped like a knife and whirled around to plunge the pencil into the side of Rich's jaw. It went through his cheek and knocked a tooth out. Same situation, but two kids went to the technical school in the morning. The quiet nerdy kid had been picked on for weeks, and on the way back from tech school he told his bully, "When we get back to school I'm going to kill you." The bully laughed. When they got off the bus, the bully got in the kid's face and the kid whipped out a carpet knife he had stolen from tech school and just started stabbing and slashing the bully all across the chest and stomach. Some like 15-year-old somehow got my 16-year-old younger sister's phone number and kept calling her saying creepy stuff like "I'm gonna rape you" or "I'm watching you." My dad is a federal investigator. Last I heard, that kid is no longer allowed to have or operate a telephone for a certain amount of time without parental supervision. Two idiot teenage thugs trying to mug a man who was wearing an old field jacket. The guy was an instructor for the military police in hand-to-hand combat, arresting techniques, and under the one size larger loose jacket was a 200 pounds of solid muscle brick wall. It was awful. Like seeing a train wreck. You want to turn your head, but you just can't and keep watching. After all ended, I don't think you can found 4 teeth between the two of them. I thought that only happened on the movies. Didn't witness it, but it was all over the news some years ago. In Los Angeles, a guy tries to hijack a van. Canadian Olympic judo team was in that van, including the trainer. To quote one of the members of that team, he did not know what hit him. I was in India with my Swedish friend. She was a semi-professional handball player at the time, so she was pretty muscular. Now, if you've ever been to India with or as a white woman, you're going to get groped. Often. Not to say all men in India are such pigs, but it's a populated country and enough of them are for to be an almost daily, or in some cases multiple times a day event. It was just after a heavy monsoon rain in Goa, and we were walking along a dirt path near the beach, right alongside this giant 20cm deep puddle that basically covered the whole road. She'd been accidentally groped twice already that day, and had done nothing. But this time was different. 5 or 6 youngish guys. Late teens. Maybe early 20s. All in designer jeans, sneakers and baseball hats and so on. Despite us being at the beach, basically rich kids from Mumbai were walking along, blocking the whole path and literally just grabbing girls as they passed by them. Then they got to her and one of them just ran his hand up from her waist across her breast, and she ducking socked him across the jaw so fast and hard he just crumpled backwards before anyone knew what was happening. Right into the huge mud puddle. In all his designer gear. He splashed around a bit, and we thought his friends were going to kick off, but of course, they all put their heads down and kept walking. Terrified as she started shouting at him. He tried to get up, reaching for his hat which was floating nearby, and she puts her foot on his chest and just pushes him back into the puddle. Right down, making sure he was completely covered. Face and everything. "Stay there till you can't see me anymore," she said. And we walked off. I checked back, and he was still lying in the puddle, even though she was 50 meters away or so, just waiting for her to leave. It was glorious.